Hello, and welcome to I Hate Talking, a podcast about talking, including etymology, frustrating topics, current events, and other random subjects. I'm Adam.
And I'm Steph. We are married, and we invite you into these discussions with us as we talk about the good and the bad of talking.
We hope you enjoy today's episode. Welcome to episode 85 of I Hate Talking.
Hi, everyone.
So we do have a couple of announcements, I guess, before our word or phrase of the episode. So November, we did achieve our most downloads in a month since our inception.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
May was a little bit hard to overcome because that was our launch month, which I guess was many, many months ago.
A year and a half ago.
A year and a half ago.
Yeah.
But that was because that was our launch month. And we also, I think, dropped nearly twice the amount of episodes that particular month because we launched with 5. So if you have not listened to those particular episodes, you can always find those in your podcast archives on whatever listening platform you are currently listening on, and go back and have a listen. If you have not listened to those particular episodes, you can catch up on our entire anthology.
Yeah.
And then I guess that was our only announcement.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
We do have our request that if you do enjoy this podcast, that you like, share, and subscribe. And always feel free to leave a comment, send us an email, or send us a text with anything that you particularly like or dislike. And we're always open to suggestions for the word or phrase of the episode.
Yeah, definitely. But be nice, too. You can help us. What is it? Constructive criticism? Kind constructive criticism?
There you go. Or just outright praise and no criticism at all.
I like that better.
That's true. So our particular word or phrase of the episode is regatta.
Oh, okay.
So if you were paying attention, I guess a episode or two ago, I think just this past episode, we were talking about how I was giving some instructions for a quote-unquote construction project to Cub Scouts, and used the phrase that I was waiting on 6 or 7 of them while we were trying to quiet down so that they could receive the instructions for the construction project. And that did not help with the quieting down at all.
No, that made you more popular with the kids, but it just made them more rowdy.
Yes, it certainly did. But nonetheless, we were able to eventually get everyone's attention and move on to that particular construction project. And that construction project was a sailboat for the Raingutter Regatta.
Okay, yeah.
So the Raingutter Regatta is one of the quintessential Cub Scout races. So I think most people are familiar with the Pinewood Derby, where Scouts will construct a car out of a block of wood and provided wheels and axles, and then race those on a track based on the car receiving its power from gravity.
Yeah, I think that's what most people think of when they think of Cub Scouts, and that is probably the biggest event, right, of the year.
I think it's the biggest overall event across all packs. Not necessarily the biggest event that we do at our pack. Or maybe it is.
I don't know. I think it is. You don't think so?
We do a lot of events.
We do.
So it is one of the big ones, for sure. So the other race, and actually there used to be even a third race, which has been discontinued, is the Space Derby, where
the rocket build.
Yes, the rockets that would be powered by wind power by having a fan that is powered by a rubber band that is twisted many times over, and then that powers the fan and it races along a fishing line, essentially. Space Derby was that one, but that has been since discontinued. It was probably a good decision to discontinue that. It was a lot of trouble with the rubber bands either breaking or not having consistent power between the variety of scouts that were racing these particular things that they were built.
Oh, okay.
But the one that we're talking about in this episode is the Raingutter Regatta. So also wind-powered, but actually wind-powered based on the breath of the scout powering a sailboat with a straw as the sailboat sits in a quote-unquote rain gutter. Now, with technology in this day and age, it's actually an inflatable race course that is filled with water, not necessarily a rain gutter per se, but that is how it came about originally.
Right. Like ours is like a long, narrow, almost swimming pool, right? Like very shallow swimming pool kind of thing.
Yes, 2 lanes separated by a additional inflated section. But yes, similar to an air mattress, but with 2 trowels for the water that is like a little mini swimming pool.
Yep.
And then this event is called the Raingutter Regatta. So I don't know if I've ever encountered Raingutter Regatta or that word singularly, regatta, anywhere else besides the Raingutter Regatta. Have you?
Let me think. I can't think of one off the top of my head. I feel like I have, but I can't think of any. So maybe not. I feel like, is it, okay, I might be totally out to lunch on my guess. When I think of a regatta, if someone said there's a regatta, I would think of like almost like another term for racing.
Yes, I'm familiar with the word. I've certainly encountered it as part of my vocabulary over the years, but can't particularly place anywhere that has been used on a consistent, frequent basis besides the Cub Scouts Raingutter Regatta.
Mm-hmm. So what does it mean?
So the definition, according to our favorite Oxford Language Dictionary for the word regatta, is, quote, a sporting event consisting of a series of boat or yacht races, end quote.
Okay.
So it is specifically and exclusively used for a boat race.
Okay.
So you would not have a Pinewood regatta or a space regatta or a rocket regatta because those are not boats.
Okay. Which makes sense why we don't use it that often in our lives because we don't have large bodies of water really around and we're not boat people necessarily.
That's true. Not yet. So the origin of the word regatta is strictly from Italian. So no Greek or Latin roots for this particular word or phrase of the episode. Comes exclusively from Italian, and the word is in Italian regatta.
Okay, yeah.
And that was originally used in the 17th century to mean a fight or a contest. And then in the same century, 17th century, that came to being the boat racing, specifically in the Venetian dialect, which would make sense since they're close to the water and are going to be very boat-centric within that area of Italy.
So it wasn't initially boats only, but then Venice and that sort of area made it popular?
Yes. So doing some additional research here from vocabulary.com, it seems that Oxford Language Dictionary might not have gotten this all correct because it does come from a Latin word even prior to that for regattarare, which means to compete, haggle, or sell at retail. And it became later used to mean boat race within the Italian context and all of the social events related to boat racing.
Okay.
It doesn't really seem that there's any particular etymology on how that came about in terms of how regatta became used exclusively for boat racing. But that is the etymology.
Do jet skis, would there be, instead of like a jet ski race, is it a jet ski regatta?
So Merriam-Webster's does say that it can be a rowing boat, a speedboat, or a sailing boat. competes in a race or series of such races.
So the Olympics for the rowers, they're doing an Olympic regatta, rowing regatta?
Yes, it would seem so.
Okay.
But I think in our modern context and vocabulary, we would just call that a race.
Okay.
Now, it does seem that there is more of a emphasis, especially within even the U.S., but probably more European, that regattas do typically refer to sailing. But there are rowing regattas as well.
Okay.
So there's actually a number of different regattas that are officially held every year. So, for example, according to Wikipedia, there's the Henley Royal Regatta, which is in Britain, and that is a rowing regatta. There's also the Oxford University and the Cambridge University boat clubs that have regattas. There's actually one in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, called the Dad Vale Regatta, which is a rowing regatta. And then there's a lot of sailing regattas. So it does seem that the regatta is more going to be used in terms of sailing races. So there's a bunch. They're all over from Canada, England, Netherlands, Florida, California, Sweden, that are examples of a variety of races that are sailing regattas.
So we've been part of Scouts since 2019. And every year, almost every year, I guess, done a boat regatta race. Has anyone ever asked what it was or questioned what that was? Because I feel like we just use it, regatta, and we move on. No one seems to question what we're saying or what the purpose of the race is.
That is true. I think I have encountered some people that are maybe a little bit unsure of what we're talking about. But when I just say that they're model sailboats, that seems to answer most of the questions in their face that they maybe are not outwardly asking. Like, what is a regatta? But you can sort of tell that like maybe they don't know.
But it's like a cultural, like you don't want to keep asking more questions or
Probably
sound dumb.
And also Cub Scouts has just a lot of terminology that is very specific to Cub Scouts. So I think that's also probably people's assumptions that it's just some other thing that Cub Scouts do that is very specific to Cub Scouts. But as we have learned in this episode, it is actually not. Regatta is a widely used term, probably not so much in the United States or at least in our circles where we're not involved with sailing or rowing on a regular basis.
Yeah, but if you maybe live in New England and that kind of thing.
Yes, Cambridge.
That's what I expect.
Massachusetts. Yeah. Yes, it looks like that is the case. Florida as well has a bunch. So there's maybe some regattas that would be more prevalent with the citizenry that lives in ocean states, perhaps. Yes, they do not really question Raingutter regatta because it does not really have any indication unless you know what it is or know the word regatta, because Raingutter does not give really any clues either if that's the first time that you've encountered the phrase Raingutter regatta.
Yeah, but do we call it a boat regatta? I feel like we do sometimes. Is that on accident or that's like just a clarification that's thrown in there?
I personally will...
Rainboat regatta.
Rainboat?
Is that what we say?
No, we say Raingutter regatta. I always call it Raingutter regatta. I will sometimes refer to the actual craft that the Scouts are piloting or powering as boats or sailboats. But when I refer to the event, I always refer to it as Raingutter regatta. But maybe other people call it other things. But
no, I believe you. I'm good with that.
Raingutter regatta. And I guess this is the only regatta that we've participated in, because I've never been in a sailing or rowing race, which I think is probably quite apparent because we did not know that word regatta. So I would assume the same is true for you, that you've never been in a regatta other than the Raingutter regatta.
I guess not officially. But one time with my family, we rented, kayaks or canoes. I don't really know the difference between them, truly. But we had 3 of them, and we did our own little mini race, but it wasn't like official. There was no winners. It was just for bragging rights.
I see. But you just called it a race. You didn't call it a regatta. It wasn't
didn't
like
call it a regatta.
family regatta of.
We should have, though. That'd been fancy.
That's true.
No.
I've also been in non-official boat races where there is, a friendly competition to go as fast as you can and reach a particular destination or whatnot. But nor have I referred to those as regattas. And those would have been on typically canoes, maybe some kayaks. I have gone sailing before, but that was more for just pleasure, not for racing.
Yeah, I went sailing once with your uncle.
That's right.
That's who you went sailing with, I assume, too?
Yes, that's correct.
It's the only time I've ever been on a sailboat. That was cool. So what is the difference between a kayak and a canoe?
So obviously a sailboat is far different than any particular boat that you will row or paddle. Mm-hmm. So I think that's relatively apparent that a sailboat is going to be wind powered with a sail, and that is how the Raingutter regatta functions as well. And then there's probably another category with like a rowboat, and then you have your canoe, and then you have your kayak. So off the top of my head, I guess we will maybe perhaps do some bonus words or phrase of the episode if we actually define these things specifically. But a canoe has a particular shape that I think came about from the Native Americans, or maybe like the French Canadians would have canoes. There would be certainly other indigenous peoples that would have similar boats. So those that perhaps are in the Pacific Ocean would have like outrigger canoes and things like that, where they will take a log and hollow that out and make that particular distinct shape.
And that's what outrigger means?
Outrigger is a part of the canoe. So that would be a additional structure attached to the canoe for greater stability.
Okay.
So I don't think in America you would typically see outrigger canoes, because typically those canoes are going to be for more lakes, rivers, and streams, whereas an outrigger canoe will be for the open ocean.
Okay.
And then a kayak is similar, but I think is going to be, I don't know. I don't know what exactly the difference between a kayak is. I can picture it in my mind, the very distinct difference between a kayak and a canoe, but
I feel like
don't know the exact definition on what actually makes them different.
I feel like I've been told that like a kayak is in the water, like your body's in the water. But then I see people call other boats kayaks, that you're not physically in the water. Like a canoe sits on top, right? And like the sides come up beside you.
That's true.
That's what I would think of as a canoe. And then I always thought a kayak was when you sit in it and you're like your legs are actually in the thing and you're much more level with the water. But then I hear people call other ones go back and forth. So either people aren't saying it right, or I'm not describing it in my head properly.
Well, and that could be that the original term kayak is how you're describing it, but then with the variety of boats that have been invented since that time, then you have sit in kayaks or sit on top kayaks. You even have different styles of canoe where perhaps it's different seating arrangements and everything like that. And then similarly, you have rowboats that are going to be different as well. So maybe, I guess we're going to have to do the research on this episode live for you, our listeners, so that we can come to a conclusive finality on canoe, kayak, and rowboat. But
right.
Is perhaps the difference the method in which you power the watercraft?
Do you paddle different in a kayak versus a canoe?
Versus a rowboat.
Right. I can see the rowboat being different because you have the two and you're doing it at the same time, right?
Right. So in a rowboat, typically you would have fixed oars attached to the boat, and you are using both hands that are rowing the boat separate from one another, but in conjunction, essentially, since you are doing that at the same time if you're going straight, essentially, you're going to row both oars at the same time from that fixed point on the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And then a canoe will have a single paddle that you will grasp and paddle on one side or the other.
And then you swap hands.
You can swap hands
sides.
if you're in a 2-person canoe, or you could even do it as a 1-person canoe and you're just changing sides every few strokes so that you maintain your course. And then a kayak, you will typically paddle with a double-bladed paddle. So you're basically holding one single paddle that has blades on each end, and you are propelling yourself through the water via that particular means.
So you're going like left, right, like a canoe, except it's one really long paddle versus the canoe shorter, and you have to go back and forth yourself.
Correct. And I think the distinction between a canoe and a rowboat is a canoe will use paddles and a rowboat will use oars. So what's the difference between an oar and a paddle?
No. That's what I was thinking in my head. I was trying to picture it. What's the difference? And what's a kayak? Use a paddle or?
I would call that a paddle. Kayak paddles, canoe paddles, and rowboat oars.
Okay.
So,
all right, let's find out why.
We'll find out. So we're going to do the research right now, and we'll be right back with hopefully the answer. We'll see what we can find. All right, so we may not have all the answers here, but we were at least able to find the difference between a rowboat and a canoe. And the biggest distinction is the means by which they are powered. So a rowboat is propelled by oars with oar locks. So that is what I was describing as the fixed point within the boat that those oars are attached, while a canoe is propelled by a single-bladed paddle.
Okay, yeah, good job. That's what you said.
And then typically rowboats are going to be powered with the rower facing backwards versus the canoe where the paddler is facing forwards.
Huh. Okay. I do like watching the rowers on like in the Olympics and stuff. I like how they all line up and work together.
That's true. Or you could have a rowboat with a single rower as well. That's like the old-timey rowboat where you have the guy paddling the lady with her parasol.
Yeah, that's what I was picturing in my head right now. It's so cute.
I wonder if that's what our listeners were picturing as well.
Or like the little rascals. How Darla and what was his name?
I don't know. This was not my time, so I'm not familiar. That picture did not come to my mind.
Family movie night. We need to watch it. Darla. Oh, what's his name? Someone's screaming in their radio right now.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Oh, my goodness. What is it?
Not only have I not forgotten, I have never known this knowledge.
You've never watched?
I've seen bits and parts of it when other people have watched it, but I have never sat down and watched Little Rascals.
Oh, my goodness. We're going to have to.
They have like a dog, right? With a spot on its eye.
Yeah.
That reminds me of Homeward Bound. Is it the same dog?
From Homeward Bound?
Is Homeward Bound dog the same dog that's in Little Rascals?
Little Rascals was like Homeward Bound was like 90s movie. Little Rascals was like really old. Oh, maybe not, because Macaulay Culkin was in it. I don't know what I'm talking about. Petey's the dog, though. I'm pretty sure.
Yes. Petey is the dog.
Ah, see? I can remember. Why can't I remember the guy's name? He's got the hair that sticks up. What does your Google say?
And Chance was Homeward Bound.
Uh-huh.
They're even different breeds. So Chance was an American Bulldog, and Little Rascals, Petey was a Pit Bull Terrier. So different dogs.
Hey, what's his name? Look it up.
Hi. Where's your research devices?
Charging in the other room.
All right, Darla and...
Darla's the girl.
Alfalfa?
Alfalfa! Yes! All right, thank you. Alfalfa and Darla go on a boat like that. It's really cute. So we'll watch that next movie night. And circling back, a kayak, is that paddles or oars?
So according to our research here, the kayak is distinguished from a canoe, again, based on its paddle, but also its deck. So it was both things that we mentioned separately. So kayaks use a double-bladed paddle, and the canoe uses the single bladed paddle, as we've already mentioned. And then in terms of their actual construction, a typical kayak will have a closed deck where the paddler sits inside. So they basically are contained within the boat.
That's what I was saying, but I couldn't describe it that well.
Right. But now they do have sit on top kayaks where you're not. So.
But why is that a kayak then?
It's still kayak. I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, you still use the double-bladed paddle for that.
Mm.
You could use a single paddle, but it works better for the particular design, I think, to use a double-bladed.
Okay.
Whereas the canoe will have an open top where the paddler will typically sit or kneel. And that's it. There's really no particular other differences. It's basically the kayak has the closed deck, which is also called a cockpit, uses the two-bladed paddle, and that is really the only distinguishing things from a canoe, where that will be an open deck and usually use the one-bladed paddle.
So which do you prefer between like a rowboat? Even you can throw sailboat in there. Or we didn't even talk about like motorboats. So out of all of those kind of boats, what is your vessel of preference?
I think I have nostalgia for canoes. That was what our family typically did. So we do have kayaks now, and that does make it a little bit easier. One of the things that is mentioned here in some of the comparisons is that kayaks will typically be more maneuverable. So that does make it a little bit easier for small children to go about on a small river or lake.
Maneuvering them in the water or like transporting them? I feel like they're much lighter, right?
Yeah, transport to and from the waterways as well as actually in the water. Now you can take more stuff in a canoe, so you could even have multiple people in a canoe. Probably better for actually hauling things. So that is another thing that probably gives a little bit more of a win to the canoe in my mind.
Okay.
So a bit of a meandering topic as we were talking about regattas and a whole variety of boats. But hopefully you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as a particular note for our upcoming Thanksgiving holiday, we will not be having an episode. So we will return back after Thanksgiving in December. That's with crazy. Our next episode.
It is kind of funny to be talking about all this water sports when we've already had our first snow of the year. And like you said, Thanksgiving's coming up, and then December will be our next episode. So this isn't time appropriate. We're not going to be getting out on the water ourselves, right? Anytime soon. But in the spring, we're already looking forward to it.
That's true. And you always can have water sports anytime with Scouts with the Raingutter Regatta.
That's right.
So from your friends at I Hate Talking, until next time, remember, it is only through talking that we begin the journey to understanding.